This video is brought to you by Incogni. Stick around to hear more about the special offer they're providing to the entire Upper Echelon community. Okay, lately I've been going down a sort of rabbit hole on science fiction narratives and the fact that they sometimes, or very often, feel like they're accurately predicting modern life. I started with Idiocracy and how that feels like a documentary now as opposed to some sort of dystopian future. I moved on to a video game by Treyarch called Black Ops 2, which is disconcertingly accurate when it comes to quantum computing, geopolitics, and drone warfare in 2025 especially. But this time I want to take a look at a movie called Minority Report, because the underlying premise that is being presented in this film appears to be coming true. Let's start with background. Minority Report, a 2002 American science fiction mystery thriller, is a widely popular and very nostalgic film. It stars Tom Cruise, a significant film in his early career. It made hundreds of millions of dollars, and far beyond some sort of generic action flick, it's actually a complicated story about the dystopian prospect of a high-tech police state. In this darkly authoritarian future, there's basically no more crime, specifically murder. Instead, there's something called pre-crime, or maybe intent crime is a better way to put it, where a trio of psychics called precogs will predict who is likely to commit a crime before it happens, after which an experimental task force or police force will go and apprehend them. The movie centers on the idea that Tom Cruise, the main character and a high-ranking member of this pre-crime task force, is then targeted by the psychics himself, which puts him on the run, evading a police state and trying to fight back against this sort of psychic tyrannical government. It's interesting because many of the smaller concepts shown in the film have already proven to be mostly accurate. One of the very first things that director Steven Spielberg actually did before making the movie was assemble a think tank of about 15 prominent scientists in Santa Monica to envision what the city of Washington, D.C. might look like in 2054, and the resulting 80 or so page brief became the basis of Minority Report's dystopian world. I won't spend too much time here on the smaller details, but far beyond the core premise of precognition, intent, crime, and law enforcement, many of the surrounding concepts are continually showing up in the modern world. One that really sticks out to me in particular, at least recently, is when Tom Cruise goes through a sort of gruesome surgical procedure to hide his identity, because the futuristic method of ID verification is based on a scan of your retina, your eyeball. Human eyes are just as distinct as fingerprints, perhaps more so, in this totalitarian future, and the eyes are what they use to identify you. Well, that kind of sounds like WorldCoin, the AI human network ID project backed by Sam Altman, founder of OpenAI, which aims to scan the retina of every human they possibly can, targeting poor nations around the globe in exchange for crypto tokens, where you go up and this big shiny orb scans your eyes. And then they use that biometric data as a method of verifying who is actually a real person. If we're talking about a dystopian science fiction movie where the police state has retina scans and records of every citizen out there for the purpose of keeping them in line, WorldCoin starts to feel like a bit of an early warning sign. The thing is, details like that are actually pretty small in the grand scheme of things. The main point of the film is to demonstrate a shift between prosecution of actual crimes and prosecution of alleged intended crimes. So where do I draw that comparison? And how can I possibly justify the title, Minority Report in Real Life? This is how. This right here. This is a FOIA requested document obtained by an organization called State Watch, that's Freedom of Information Act, by the way, FOIA, coming from the UK Ministry of Justice, about a program which they are gathering and analyzing data for actively right now, internally called, quote, the Murder Prediction Program. Actually, no, it's not called the Murder Prediction Program anymore. That was the internal and unofficial name for it. Now it's called the Sharing Data to Improve Risk Assessment Program, because they realized a murder prediction is like a stage 10 dystopian sci-fi title. But if you look at the functionality of what this machine learning program is, what it's designed to do, and how it could then be used, we're talking about Minority Report, plain and simple. Sure, it's not three psychics in a pool of liquid spitting out complicated digital code from their coma brains, but the idea of using data, patterns, and previous behavior as a predictive measure to determine who is most likely to commit a crime before they do is the exact premise of Minority Report, and it's the exact thing that this program is intended to do, which is officially sanctioned and actively being pursued right now by the UK government. In terms of justifying the video title, that is, Minority Report in Real Life, let me know if it's accurate down below in the comment section. Something I harp on rather often these days is online privacy. There's a lot of ways that your data gets tracked, stolen, monetized, and harvested, a lot of which are completely voluntary, by the way. But if you had a choice about whether or not anyone who wanted your information ever could easily access it, what would you choose? Companies maintain a lot of your personal information even after you discontinue a service or stop using their platform, and that information goes on to be sold by data brokers all around the world in a completely separate information economy which you never benefit, only suffer from. If you ever wondered how your phone number suddenly gets 500 telemarketing calls, this is one of the ways that happens. For everyday users, it's nearly an impossible task to take action because there are hundreds of these data brokers, and it's a lengthy process to contact them, fight objections, and get your data removed. However, Incogni does all of this for you quickly and easily. The process is extremely simple. Sign up for the website, give them legal permission to work on your behalf, and let them know the specifics of what they'll be having removed. After that, they just do it. Aggregating the service lets them streamline the process, and you'll see results almost immediately. Less data brokers and third-party marketing companies who have your information means less spam, less hassle, and most importantly, less potential for data breaches. Using the link down below in the description and code Echelon at checkout, you can get 60% off an annual subscription to Incogni. Again, link down below and promo code Echelon for 60% off your subscription. Big thank you to Incogni for sponsoring the channel. Okay, so we know that there's a prediction program based on large data sets from Manchester Police, the Ministry of Justice, and the National Offender Management Service, which operates something called the Offender Management System, aka OASIS. I'll talk about that in a second. But what is the program really for? Let's use the words of the official document itself. Quote from section 1.2. Overview of the entire project. The project is a data science pilot to A. Review offender characteristics that increase the risk of committing homicide. B. Explore alternative and innovative data science techniques to risk prediction of homicide. C. Explore the predictive power of OASIS, Delius and NOMIS, MOJ datasets available on the analytical platform. D. Explore the additional predictive power of the national PNC dataset. E. Explore the additional predictive power of local police, Greater Manchester, data in relation to homicide risk. F. To provide evidence towards improving prediction of serious crime and ultimately contribute to protecting the public via better analysis. The project is a priority piece of work that feeds into the Crime and Justice Task Force homicide targets, which supports this cross-agency collaboration and this application of data science to operational problems. End quote. Fantastic. That is quite literally Minority Report. Like I said, sure, it's not about clairvoyant psychics, but using data and machine learning in particular, which then incorporates drug use, medical history, offender history, or disability even, as well as other chronicled behavior from the past to predict how likely you are to do something in the future, is like the pinnacle of science fiction police state. Furthermore, one section down in cell 1.3, quote, a final report is published on main findings/models/research, which includes ethical considerations and reflections on future operationalization and or policy development based on the work. End quote. See, as of right now, they're not using the system to arrest people, but they only began researching all this stuff in 2023, I think it was. This kind of prediction effort is fresh out of the box, really, with an explicit carve-out that talks about future policy development based on the work. If that doesn't sound like the first steps towards a literal Minority Report system, then I don't know what does. This is where it gets even more interesting because remember OASIS, the offender assessment system? Yeah, I had no idea this was happening, but according to Statewatch, the same organization that originally FOIA requested these documents, quote, the MOJ, Ministry of Justice, has developed and implemented other data-based profiling tools in the British criminal legal system to predict offending. This includes the reoffending prediction tool called the Offender Assessment System, OASIS. Predictions produced by this system are given to judges as part of sentencing decisions, prison categorization, and also influence probation decisions, such as when someone is released from prison, end quote. Correct me if I'm wrong, legal scholars down below if you want to, but that sounds like an algorithmic prediction model which is already impacting the legal system. Sentencing, probation, when someone is released. That sounds to me like a computer program trained on data is actively making at least partially impactful decisions on who gets incarcerated and how long they stay there. To be clear, I'm not an expert on UK criminal law, but I'm forced to reckon with the fact that programs like this do not exist in a vacuum. This kind of system is built for a reason and often, very often, proliferates. So what happens when it makes its way over the ocean and grabs hold of a for-profit prison system in the United States, for example? Companies here make more money based on how overcrowded they can make their prisons, which makes me shall we say, dubious of a system where prediction on who should or should not be given probation would then affect the fairness of rehabilitation. That sounds incredibly naive, I know, because obviously any system like that will become immediately and completely abused for profit. But before anyone starts saying, oh, it's just an experiment, it'll never actually happen, take a look at this. This right here is research from HM Prison and Probation Services, published by the Ministry of Justice in the UK yet again, which analyzes and subsequently defends the value and accuracy, most importantly, of OASIS prediction indicators. This isn't just dipping your toe in the water for the fun of it. This feels like intention to swim. And now the concept of using predictions in law enforcement is jumping from recidivism, which is the tendency for a convicted criminal to reoffend. Now it's jumping over to prediction of initial crime itself, specifically homicide, as in Minority Report, the movie. Keep in mind, the movie is based on 2054 Washington, D.C., but right now we're experiencing the exponential curve of technology. Every prior advancement accelerates the advancements afterwards, and many of the smaller surrounding concepts of the movie already exist. 2054 is a long time away, obviously, and yes, this program only just began super recently, and it's currently isolated to the UK, as far as we know. But imagine if a system like this measurably impacted crime rates. Actually, no, forget about whether or not it actually did in reality. Imagine if everyone was told that it did. Imagine if governments and media companies all simultaneously said, the system is amazing, there's hardly any false positives ever, and then the homicide rate fell by like 50%. Do we seriously believe they wouldn't begin using it internationally? I know the type of content I make feels like a never-ending spiral of depressive doomerism, but there's a reason for that. And the reason is the perpetual erosion of rights, liberties, and privacy, which is taking place seemingly every day. In the end, I titled the video Minority Report in Real Life because the UK appears to be researching precisely that. They have a whole program for it. An official government initiative backed by crime stats from the Ministry of Justice, various police departments, and more is being used to construct a system that predicts crime, when a similar type of prediction is already being used in the broader judicial environment. I see no indication that the trend will stop, slow down, or reverse. On the contrary, I see every indication that it will rapidly accelerate in the future. That's it. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. The video sponsor, of course, protect your personal data with Incogni. Locals and Patreon, monthly memberships, those are a perfect way. Merchandise, social media, a special VPN deal as well, etc., etc. But I'll cut it there and stop rambling. As always, thank you all for watching, question everything, and have a nice night.